If somebody tells us they have a marketing problem, the first thing we're going to look at is their call conversion. Am I answering the phone and I'm converting it to a lead? Maybe they don't have a marketing problem. Maybe they have a conversion problem. We don't teach people to sell. We teach people to provide solutions and options and let the customer choose.
The biggest revelation, like that acquisition cost almost becomes irrelevant. Cross-selling, upselling, educating, informing, being useful, being relevant, being frequent, these kind of things, which a lot of businesses just typically, they don't do because their focus is on doing the thing.
Jason Noel is a master advisor at CEO Warrior. With over 20 years of leadership in the home services industry,
he has helped companies grow from $3 million to $30 million by driving revenue, expanding margins, and implementing effective processes.
Yeah, that's a must. So as people come on board, we do a business analysis and we really dive into their financials, make sure they're laid out correctly, matching our chart of accounts, right? Just make sure everything's in the right bucket and just really identify where they have some efficiencies and inefficiencies and really be able to kind of, I mean, if it's gross margin inefficiencies, we can really start diving into pricing and, labor and making sure, the guys are being efficient in the field. If it's overhead, right, we dive into a whole different area. But a lot of it comes down to pricing, absolutely.
So just for the listeners that aren't familiar with CEO Warrior, can you give us the 30,000 foot overview?
Of course. Well, first and foremost, I'm honored to be here. Thank you for continuing your relationship with CEO Warrior. We're glad to be here. I'm honored to be a part of it. CEO Warrior is a training, coaching, implementation organization. We've actually been in business. This was our 10-year anniversary. And we help business owners. So what we've identified, so it was built out of an electrical company, two guys in a truck, built up a large scale business, sold, basically said, I'm going to teach everybody else how to do the same thing. And that's how CEO Warrior was born.
Was that gold medal?
That was gold medal. Absolutely. Yeah. That, as you know, from our history, that's where we started. So we continue to improve. We continue to run the same play. It's just improved as we try to keep up with the times. But basically what happens in our business is there's a lot of service. We call them service experts. It's what people call technicians. A lot of service experts out there are working for other companies and decide they want to start their own business, right? They're tired of making money for everybody else. And they're really good with their hands. They're really good technicians. They just aren't really clear on how to run a business. Right. So that's where we come in. We come in and, we know they can do plumbing and electrical, HVAC, garage doors. We know all of those things, right? They're talented with those things. But where we come in is we help them line out their financials, like I talked about earlier, and really help them build and scale their business. And even more importantly, Matt, be profitable.
And I guess that's really the topic of this episode today. It's about how to build, to be profitable and how to create budgets and revenue mindsets and all that kind of thing. Because it's like you say, you go through, you serve your trade, you go through your apprenticeship or your version of it, whatever you have within your area. And like essentially at the end of it, you can swing a hammer and climb a ladder, but you have no idea how to run a business. Yet here's a ticket on how to run your business. Like off you go, and that was my experience as well, formerly a plumber. Sort of went through the whole trade, licensing, certification, hoo-ha, and then, at the end of it, they're like, right, off you go, run your business. And I'm like, what? I don't even know how to pay it.
I don't even know how to spell it, right?
And I think that's where a lot of people, like a lot of businesses I see, today, like as a marketing agency, we have to have these conversations all the time with businesses that are looking to scale and they've never had to at any point even consider things like marketing budget. It's like, what the heck's that? Like, and as I was saying before, like I always reference that one truck exercise so people understand you need to make as part of your project value, your ticket, your invoice, there needs to be allocations for all of these things which aren't obvious.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing I love about the one truck exercise is it actually creates a break even hourly amount, right? So you're like, okay, you're going to work your butt off and should charge this hourly rate and you make no profit.
Yeah.
Right. And too many times I think profit is looked at as a bad thing and it absolutely is not. I mean, that's what we're in business for. Of course, we want to take care of clients and things like that, but we have to have a profit to be able to invest back into our business, right? To be able to grow it and scale it the way we want to. So like you mentioned earlier, it's like I have tons of clients come in and go, I wish we would have known this sooner, right? But like we don't want anybody to feel that way, because you don't know what you don't know, right? Like, you don't know until we start analyzing your business, and we've been there. So let us help you kind of explain these things and support you along the way.
I think as well, like the paradigm shift, like conceptually they come into it thinking, well, I don't want to rip people off. And then, like, you know, what you need to unpack and help them understand is the fact that if you don't make money, then you go out of business and the client's screwed anyway. Right. So you need to run a business that's profitable and that makes money in order to stay afloat and support, you know, your clientele looking forward. I was recently out for dinner with a couple of for a friend's birthday, and there was a couple of his friends there who were in the trades, carpentry, that kind of thing, and they were talking about, like, you know, what they should be charging. And I'm sitting in between these two, and I'm like, you guys are out of your fucking mind. You guys are absolutely out of your fucking mind. Like, you are so far off the mark. And their argument, of course, was, well, if we they were kind of hamstrung to a degree, in the sense that they were sort of operating like as they were contracting to builders, you know. So the builders were like, well, this is the rate. If you don't do it, fine, I'll go get someone else that'll do it for that rate, you know. So they didn't really have the captain's call over what they could charge at the end of the day, but they also had no idea as to what they need to charge to be profitable. Right. And, you know, I referred them back to this podcast. I'm like, you need to go listen to this podcast and get a better understanding of it. And we have this conversation a lot with, you know, our clients as well. It's like, well, you need to understand what is your baseline to be profitable, to make money. And if people don't want to pay that, that's okay. That's a win for you. Like, don't lower to their level. Like, if you can't make money out of that job, don't just do it for the hell of it.
Yeah, you know? For sure. Yeah, and there's so many aspects that go into building that price, right? With your overhead, and again, like you talk about the one truck exercise, that's a one truck with very little overhead. Right. So they build their billable hour, and then realize, okay, well, now I kind of understand why my company's charging what we're charging, with all the other expenses that they didn't even know anything about. But yeah, that's a huge point.
So budgeting is, I suppose, a conversation which, I mean, even myself, truthfully, like it's always been a struggle. I've never really fully been able to grasp. I mean, we do it, obviously, and I now have got a team that do it. I do it with me, which is great, because it's absolutely never been my strong point. But I guess for a lot of the listeners and viewers out there, they would, you know, I suppose conceptually understand what budgeting means, but probably practically have no clue. So I'm super keen to get into this episode and sort of talk about what that actually looks like practically for a trade business. You know, just so, I mean, like, we're obviously very big on strategy, and we're obviously very big on, you know, helping people identify, okay, well, this is, you know, the roadmap of where you want to get to. These are the milestones in order to get there. But then, like, I'd love to sort of, you know, I'm looking forward to unpacking how budgeting fits into that ecosystem.
Yeah, I think the budget, well, I fully believe the budget is how you generate that roadmap and that play, right? Because if you don't have, like, if you want to go somewhere in your car and you don't put in a destination, how do you know where to go, right? Like, and I think that's where we look at the budget, is this is your destination. This is your play. This is run, and we base it out monthly. We build it for the year, but then it's broken down monthly by how many calls they need, what's their conversion rate in the field, what's their conversion rate on the phone, what's their average ticket, right? To drive revenue by department. So that is our destination. Right now, as we come back and we look at that destination, it's just like you said. Now we build the roadmap and run the play on how to get there, right? So, but you got to build the destination first.
Interesting. So when you're talking about, like, budget, you're not necessarily purely referring to the like turnover of the business. You're referring to, like, or are you?
Well, if you mean turnover, like people, of course,
no, like profit, like revenue. Revenue.
So we're budgeting out revenue all the way down to profitability, but we're doing it step by step, all the way through cost of goods to gross margin down to net profit. But there's there's several things that feed into that, right? So what we really do is we start with past history, right? So that's where we start. So the past 3 years of history is what we're going to look at. So coming up in October, when we do our war planning event, everybody's going to have their 25, 24, 23 information, right, to plug into the spreadsheet, because what that does is it helps us build So in an HVAC specific business, it helps build those ebbs and flows based on some weather trends, and kind of gives us a way to map the revenue out for the next year.
Yeah.
So, so we take the total revenue, decide what increase we want to put on the revenue for next year. And then we basically build it backwards to determine how many calls we need, right? Which is where now we create our marketing budget from.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm curious too, like within that conversation that you have with, businesses that you're working with, at which point do you say, okay, well, like this is like the forecast based on history, but I find very often, like very much for myself and my own businesses, like I need like to deploy like a more aggressive kind of goal to avoid just the mediocrity,
Yep.
And so when I look at and this is the one thing I've learned over the years, with strategy and planning and things like that, is that like when you do reverse engineer that giant goal into like milestones, it's actually like on paper, it's like, you mean that's all I've got to do to get that? I just have to do that.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. So my history, even before CEO Warrior, I was the general manager of some pretty large businesses, right? And I would get my budget and look at my increase and be like, I've got $2 million months I got to do now. It's like, holy crap, right? But then when you break it down, and I would break mine down by daily revenue, right? When you start breaking it down by daily revenue, you're like, oh, okay, well, that's achievable, because if you just look at little percentage increments here and there, right, in a larger business, it adds up really fast, right? So if you look at your phone conversion rate, if you increase it by a couple of percent, your field conversion rate, increase it by a couple of percent, your average ticket, you increase it by a few $100s, right? Like it adds up really quickly. So if you break it down in smaller chunks like that, just like you said, it makes it more achievable for sure.
And it's super, like I had this conversation last night with a client of ours who's been with us for ages, but like their conversions have started to like really badly drop, on sale. And their answer to it is, well, we'll just spend more on ads. And I'm like, no, like you're not fixing the problem. You're just pouring fuel on a problem that already exists. Like you're pouring water into a bucket that already has holes, like, so like conceptually it's like we need to fix, like make that, like you say, these small like increments. Like what are some of the levers we can pull to improve the conversions that doesn't involve pumping money into whatever ads, for example. And then once we have fixed that problem, sure, then we can scale up, put more money in. Great, we know we're converting. But these are the things I think that are not obvious. Like they see sometimes, okay, well, not closing enough jobs, need more leads, problem solved. And then we're looking at it going, well, hang on, no, that's not the problem at all. Your leads, it's not, you're just not closing the jobs from the leads you're getting. Adding more into that place is not going to fix a thing.
Yeah. And I think it goes even deeper than that. And that's where the budgeting comes in, right? Is like, so if somebody tells us they have a marketing problem, the first thing we're going to look at is their call conversion, right? When somebody calls my company, am I answering the phone and am I converting it to a lead, right? That's where we want to start, because maybe they don't have a marketing problem. Maybe they have a conversion problem. Then we want to look at their marketing ROI reports and see if where they're spending marketing money is effective. Right? Because just because you're spending more money, if you're not spending the money in the right place, it's not going to drive more leads. Right? So it's making sure you're spending your marketing money in the right bucket and in the right place. And that's different in all different kinds of markets. So there's a lot of testing around that. And then it goes even deeper into field conversions, right? If I can increase my field conversion from 70 to 75%, that's a huge increase. I may not have a marketing problem, right? If I can, and even more so, if I increase my average ticket, and guys slow down on jobs and we work on, and we do training, right? So as we start talking about conversion issues, we want to do more training, right? We want to understand where the conversion challenges are coming from. So we, breaking it down, and you mentioned something about people not wanting to sell. Like we don't teach people to sell. We teach people to provide solutions and options. Yeah. And let the customer choose, right? There's a roadmap for that training as well. And we basically teach them how to provide options and let the customer choose. Like we're not selling them anything. Like you mentioned earlier, I hear people say all the time, I'm not going to sell somebody something they don't need. Well, I think we're doing them a disjustice by us determining what they need, right? So I think that's actually screwing them more so than not providing them options, because, and I always use a tankless water heater, for example. Who needs a tankless water heater? Oh, nobody needs one, but they're pretty freaking cool, right? So, I mean, I have one. I don't need one. I have one, and I will never not have one. So, like, that's why I don't feel like we should make that decision for them, right? We should provide options, let them choose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's, again, like a bit of a paradigm shift for the guys out on site. You know, and again, these are do you know what the biggest revelation that we help like clients understand within the marketing space is? Lifetime value.
Yeah. Because
if we're running ads, for example, for a reactive service, plumbing, electrical, whatever it might be, and their cost per lead and cost per acquisition is, I mean, it's a competitive space, right? So it's quite high typically.
Sure.
But we know periodically if they deploy process to maximize lifetime value, like that acquisition cost almost becomes irrelevant.
Yeah, and that's a big place where like club memberships come into place.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of these conversations which is super important with, I mean, and even before like the membership sort of thing was brought to the table, like it still kind of had its way in re-engagement and just being a good business, like reaching out to people, seeing if they have problems, cross-selling, upselling, educating, informing, being useful, being relevant, being frequent, like all these kind of things, which a lot of businesses just typically they don't do because their focus is on doing the thing. It's like, well, I'm here to fix the drain. See ya.
Right. Exactly.
Wait for the phone to ring,
Exactly. Yep.
So there's so many little one percenters, quoting Arnold Schwarzenegger, the 1% improvements that can be made along the way there with all these different stages through so many. I mean, we typically deal with sales and marketing, but like, of course, everywhere in the business, these little changes that can be made, which can, reduce marketing spend and increase output. Like it's the golden circle.
No, for sure.
But it's just identifying them.
And maybe you don't decrease your marketing spend, but you increase your revenue because it's more effective. So, right. So, I mean, that's huge.
Well, inevitably the constraint that we see is once in conversions from, different stages of the sales cycle start increasing, then the immediate constraint becomes on fulfillment. It's like, well, okay, now we need to recruit and hire because we're closing so many more jobs and we need more team. Good problem to have. Don't get me wrong.
It's a great problem to have, yeah.
This is why I suppose the strategy is important as well, because you need to say, okay, well, at which point in time can we budget on, in bringing a new tech in to, do more jobs, or a new team to install bathrooms or whatever the heck it is, right? But like it needs to become part of that conversation from the onset, so we understand at which point in time we need to do those things, pull those.
Yeah, and as professionals, as we get good at budgeting, we're able to project those things rather than react to those things. Right. So perfect example. I mean, part of our budget is a head count. I mean, we want to make sure you have the right amount of staffing when you need them. Right. Again, HVAC in my area in Indiana, right, in the middle of June, July, August, we need more people. Right. So I would budget that in October of the year before to know that we're going to need more people before. Right. And then the fear always becomes, well, from other people, the fear always becomes, well, then what happens when we slow down? Well, we have a plan. We've built that out, right? Part of our budget is we've got outbound, we've got club members, we've got things that we can do to fill those gaps.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So let's well, I mean, up to you, but it'd be good to sort of run through, I suppose, like the moving parts of budgeting and how to create a budget, and I suppose what that actually looks like practically for some of the listeners and viewers out there.
Yeah, I think so. The key things are getting your P&Ls accurate and cleaned up, right? Because
can we just like dive into what that actually looks like? Because I've even recently gone through this exercise with my bookkeepers. I'm like, this is a shit fight. I want it cleaned up. And we've gone through and rebuilt our entire chart of accounts within, the bookkeeping software and stuff that we work just to simplify the reporting, basically.
Yeah, of course. So as you mentioned, we have a chart of accounts that we recommend our clients use. But but what really needs to happen is it needs to be chunked out in 4 buckets, right? It needs to be your revenue, then your gross margin, right? After you take away your cost of goods, then you have your overhead expense, then you have your net profit, right? Everything in between can be cleaned up, but it really needs to be laid out in those 4 buckets, because that gives us a true picture, right? Do we want to focus on everything that's going on in cost of goods and the gross margin? Is that where we need to focus? Do we need to focus on the fact that we have too much overhead? Maybe that's not effective, right? Maybe we're spending too much in marketing, right, in the overhead section. But it needs to really be laid out in those 4 buckets. Again, everything, like I said, everything in between can be cleaned up, but that's the way it needs to be laid out. And then we can start to identify really where we want to put our focus. So once it's cleaned up that way, then it's start looking at past history. We like to go back 3 years at minimum. So we like to look at 3 years. Some of our clients don't have 3 years history, right? So we have to kind of massage it a little bit, but that's where perfect scenario, we'd have clean P&Ls. We'd be able to pull 3 years of history of P&Ls month by month. And that's kind of where we would start. And then we would want to go back and look at organizational charts and staffing. We'd want to look at call counts last year. We'd want to look at the marketing budget and see what was effective last year, and build our budget, and then figure out where we wanted to spend money to do, to have the increase in the next year. We'd want to look at department by department. We want to budget out by department, just because we want to be able to map out every single level of that. And again, when that's all said and done, the budget's done, we want to take all that information and start working on our pricing, right? Because if we're budgeting for more overhead next year, our pricing is probably going to have to go up, right? I mean, that for me, I say yes. So right, we need to look at that. That needs to be part of the equation after the budget is done, before we start the new year to get into pricing.
Well, I mean, is it always pricing? I mean, like if you
not always.
I mean, sure,
not always, but I think we want to look at that.
Right.
What I want to do is I want to review the pricing, right, to make sure the pricing is correct. It's not always pricing. There's a lot of, there could be a lot of inefficiencies with callbacks and warranties and things like that are hurting our margins. If we could clean up some of that stuff, we don't have to raise the price. And something I always like to say is I don't want to charge a customer for our inefficiencies, right? So I want to make sure we're efficient as possible, and then the price is the price at that point. That's what we have to charge.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Then in the interest of strategy, scale, creating a plan on getting to a certain goal, when we're engineering budget in the sense of, okay, what we need to spend to get to this point,
mm-hmm.
What are the key levers that impact that number at the end of the day? I mean, obviously you've got your, fulfillment. So team, okay, how many staff do we need to be able to deliver on this goal at this point in time? What are the other things? Marketing budget?
Marketing for sure. We got to look at vehicle budget, right? Because if we add more people, we got to add vehicles, right? The cost that goes associated with that, with insurance and different things. So if you're going to increase your revenue by say 10% year over year, you're going to have to increase a good portion of your overhead to support that, right? And it may not always be people, right? It might just be benefits, like you said. It might be marketing. It could, and again, if we had 5 technicians last year, we got to have 5 technicians next year. We got to have 5 new trucks. Right. So we got a budget for those. We got a budget for the fuel that's going to go into those trucks, because now we have 5 extra trucks, right? We got 5 extra trucks with insurance. It kind of just snowballs as we grow. It snowballs down, and there's expenses attached to that we just got to make sure we identify.
Sure. Yeah. So when we clean up this P&L, and we're clearly itemizing. I mean, look, I suppose those areas that you mentioned before with your gross profit, net profit, COGS, so on and so forth. A lot of the accounting, bookkeeping software will define those sort of out of the box, provided that the chart of accounts have been set up correctly. Which, truthfully, is one of the problems, because even myself, like when I was given when I started up my business, I just set it all up on my own.
Right.
I didn't really. Is this an expense or an overhead? Oh, let's call it an expense. I don't really know, and so there's obviously these tiny details which make a big difference on the P&L. And the balance sheet as well. Like, do you guys dive into balance sheets?
We do.
So can you just explain to the listeners out there, I suppose, the difference between a balance sheet and a P&L?
So the balance sheet's showing your assets and your liabilities. So where we try to get, so when we're looking at P&Ls, and we get this a lot. So we get it a lot where somebody may have a P&L and they may look profitable, but they're not getting a true picture of their cash, right? Because they have things on their balance sheet, such as truck payments, loan payments, things that aren't shown on the P&L. So they look at a profit and go, okay, I have a profit. Where's my money? Right. So we want to intertwine those two things. So we actually like to have vehicle payments, loan payments, and those things. We have them accrued to the P&L. So we get a true picture on the P&L of what's coming, what we're paying out of pocket and paying cash. Right. So at the end of the day, profit's profit, but what's real king is cash. Right. Mm-hmm. So if you can show profit, but if you don't have the cash to show for it, it means nothing. Mm-hmm. So it's identifying all of that. So we see that a lot. I literally just had a call with somebody yesterday, it was today. It wasn't yesterday. It wasn't on Sunday, but it was today that they literally said, I looked at their, it was a new client. And I looked at their profitability and I'm like, it's really pretty good. And they're like, well, where's my cash? I'm like, well, that's what we're going to dive into, because now we're going to do cash flow. We're going to do a cash flow exercise week over week to try to determine where we're missing from the P&L.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the big, quite big disconnect, because and this is where I see a lot of people, even bookkeepers, truly, like they're kind of fixed on the number. They're like, well, hang on, gross profits number's good, gross profit margin looks good, things are trending. But then they see, I think what they often lack is like the foresight of what the actual target is and what is needed to be spent in order to get to that point.
Yep.
Like we see this all, and this is really common as well when we've got businesses that are coming out of, say, word of mouth and referrals as like their main source of, client acquisition, and they move into cold traffic and, ads and running, those kind of like marketing, right? Right. And all of a sudden the bookkeeper's like, oh, hang on, we're spending way too much money over here. And then we're looking at it going, you're not spending anywhere near enough money over here. Right. And so there's like that. It's like the bookkeepers and the accountants are there, like almost they're trying to protect the business from spending money, which the business needs to spend in order to get to where they want to go sometimes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I mean, we see that quite a bit too. So as operations people, we have a pretty good accounting person on staff, but most of us more guided towards operations. So we have a lot of accounting bookkeepers that say, you can't put your vehicle payments on your P&L, or you can't put your loan payments on your P&L. Well, you can, you just don't want to. Right. Because and to be honest, accounting function wise, that's not the right way to do it. The right way to do it is to keep it on the balance sheet, because for tax purposes, it's not supposed to be on there. But you can put it on there and accrue it on there and then clean it up for tax at tax time. So like we want to see that all in one picture, because then we don't have to go back and forth to our cash flow sheet and our balance sheet and our P&L. Like I want it all in one place. And then that's really the owner's scorecard. So it kind of gives us a month over month scorecard on how they're doing.
Are you, Jason, familiar at all with the profit first methodology?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think for me, that was like such a transformative, implementation into the business, in the sense of just understanding allocations, and just, okay, you can basically have any of these things provided that we allocate for it. And and this is what I'm not sure if you guys advocated or whatever, but like, I think conceptually that whole, just making sure there's enough money in the bucket for the thing is like super important. Vehicle repayments, team, tax, big one. Like how many businesses out there? You guys probably like cringing in your seat right now. Some of you hearing, do you always have enough money for tax? There are models out there which absolutely make that, possible.
And I think what you just said, it completely aligns with the whole purpose of building a budget, right? Because so your budget and your P&L, like how do we make financial decisions without those things?
Right.
And that's the question we always ask. It's like, okay, I need to buy a backhoe. Well, how do you know? and can you afford it, right? So, or was it in your budget? Did you budget for it, right? So we should be budgeting for those things. So I think allocating that spend is part of your budget, right? So we're going to plan for that. And now it's not a big surprise, but now we know we need to generate this amount of revenue and gross margin dollars to offset this expense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's a good example, like equipment and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so what you don't want to essentially be is in a scenario where you're like, shit, now I've got to find $100,000 to buy a Bobcat or whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah, whereas if you have a fund that's already allocated there with cash within it, so for the time that when you do need it, the money exists. Like it makes it's a lot easier to justify that investment base that you've sort of pre-planned for it without even knowing that was something that you may need to buy in the future.
Yeah, and I mean, there's some planning that comes around that too. Like, I mean, if I'll talk about a backhoe. If I need to buy a backhoe, I want to build some sort of a business case around what's my return on investment. Is it cheaper to rent something, right? Is it cheaper to subcontract it out until I get to a certain level? Then it makes sense to buy something, right? That's how you make those decisions, and you have to have that information on your P&L to be able to make those types of financial decisions.
Yeah, sure. So when you're running this with clients, what sort of cadence are you referencing P&Ls, budgets, balance sheets, like just the full package reporting? How often does this happen?
So our budget is created once a year.
Yeah.
But then the document that we utilize has tabs for you to enter in your current information, right? So once you build your budget for 2026, we build it in October. Once January 1st rolls around, or actually once February rolls around, you're going to go back and put all your information from January into that, because we have a tab for that. So it compares to last year, and it compares to budget, right? So it's all encompassed in that spreadsheet, all the way down, and all the expenses all the way down to the bottom line. And then we also have departmentalized comparisons so we can track gross margins, right? So that's all done in the same document. So it's a working document throughout the year. So to answer your question, budgeting is done once a month, but then the cadence of updating that and tracking to that budget is at least a minimum of monthly.
Right. Yeah. Because I feel that's another thing where it makes it hard for business owners to be agile when they're not reviewing those numbers regularly. Mm-hmm. I mean, we run a weekly shout out to my friend Ellen Raw, who basically got me onto this, but like Auntie Ellen with the weekly financial meeting. I'm like, brilliant. Like, keep on top of it so you can make agile decisions, get your numbers up to date.
Yeah. I mean, so I'm very familiar with Ellen. I can tell you at the beginning of the GM of my last business, I was running labor percentage reports and material percentage reports daily.
Right. Yeah.
Just because I wanted to make sure everything was accurate, and I didn't want any surprises. Right. So something we like to teach here is don't wait until the 15th of the following month to see how you did the previous month.
Right.
It shouldn't be a surprise. It shouldn't be, oh man, I hope we did good. Right. We should have a pretty good idea what it's going to look like. And then if it doesn't look like that, we know we can dive into it and figure out why. But we want to get more focused on, to your point, if you could do it weekly, that'd be great. There's just so many moving things during the month, like during the current month, right? It's tough, but it can be done to at least create a good snapshot so you're not surprised at the end of the month.
I mean, I guess just for you guys out there that are watching this and listening to this, essentially what we're saying is if you wait until, day 25 to look at the numbers on how you've done that month, it's too late.
Yeah, it's too late.
Whereas if you look at it at day 5 and you're like, oh, hang on, we're a little bit off track here. We need to pick up an extra couple of jobs next week. Like, you can kind of do that. You can up budget. You could engage your database, you can do a bunch of different things, but you can kind of make those decisions within a lot more of an agile manner.
Yeah, for sure. And something we teach in conjunction to this is once you've mapped out your budget and you know what your monthly revenue goals are, we teach a daily huddle. So you have a daily huddle with your management team and you know what your daily revenue needs to be and how many calls you need to generate to get that. And you want to do that 3 days out, right? So again, instead of being reactive, we're being proactive. So if I don't have enough calls for tomorrow and the next day, I can get on the phone and start calling out and start booking calls, right? So it's being more proactive. It's being more proactive to meet this roadmap that we designed or meet this destination we designed. It's not just here it is and hope we hit it.
And with that in mind as well, if you do need to make an increase in, say, like calls or book jobs, probably not calls, book jobs, it's our experience if you're running paid traffic and ads and things like that. Every time you go in there and you muck around with ad budget and things like that, like you reset the algorithm to a degree and really cocks things up. So what are some of the things that you guys coach, on how you can increase that, which in a way that isn't going to affect, inbound numbers? Is it outbound calling?
It is. It's 100% outbound calling. There's kind of two aspects of that. We have a couple of people on our team that are really, really good with training this. I'm okay. I'm not one of those people. But you surround yourself with really good
points too, mate. Don't worry.
Yeah. So, but outbounding is a huge value, and it's twofold. So, one is outbounding on unclosed estimates, right? So maybe estimates that we've quoted that maybe the customer didn't say yes that day. It's following up on those and trying to get those back on the schedule. And then it's also getting your maintenance and your tune-ups on the schedule, right? So filling the board that way as well. So we spend a lot of time talking about being proactive with keeping your board full. And that's the way we would do it with the outbounding. Because just like you said, I mean, you can change the marketing strategy and, even if it does work, it's going to take a little while for it to work. And like you said, it messes up algorithms and like there's just so much around that. So why don't you go back and work on the leads that you've already paid for?
Lifetime value.
So that's a big strategy of ours is you've already paid that marketing money. Let's go back and get them back on the schedule.
100%. I guess as well, like you raise a good point, and this is something that we see. Some businesses have a lot more opportunity with what I'm about to say than others, and those businesses are typically like your HVAC, like lawn care, landscaping, those kind of verticals where you do have like the opportunity to regularly go back out and, service units, or even like, a lot of our solar clients, like servicing panels, servicing, like the solar systems and so on and so forth, cleaning panels, whatever it might be. Right. But the point is, I suppose, when we're working with HVAC companies, like typically here in Australia, where it's stinking hot for the majority, of the year, during the hot months, of course, people are like, well, we want aircon, right? So they don't typically plan for this during the cooler months because normally they're not running the air conditioning units. As soon as they turn them on, they break, they need to be replaced, whatever it might be. Right. But like part of their strategy is always, okay, well, how do we try to, during the cooler months, do our service work? Because that's how you can keep your team busy doing service work. Well, in the summer, you're busy doing installs because everyone's screaming for it. You're not going to go and you're not going to prioritize service work in the summer when you could be doing, replacements and installations and things like that. So just like, I suppose, understanding what the calendar, I mean, you guys, in seasonal environments would be way more familiar with that than anyone, but, painting, and there's another one, at clients in the US that do a lot of painting and stuff like that. And it's very seasonal for them. They can only do inside the house at certain times and outside the house at other times,
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you keep leading me back to the budget, Matt.
Yeah.
I think it's planning for that, right? So again, talking about HVAC, so I'll use plumbing for an example, right? That's not something that's real seasonal. So there are some slower times in plumbing. So you got to be creative as to what you can call your customer base and offer, right? Is it a plumbing inspection? Is it a sump pump inspection because it's fall and it's getting to be ready to be rainy season, right? Is it, a drain cleaning special because it's spring and it's going to rain a lot and your drains are going to back up, right? You just got to be creative on some offers and what you can reach out and do for your clients. I mean, in the HVAC world, it's a tune-up, right? So when you're seasonal, similar to what we are, and you have AC and furnace, right? You got to plan ahead as September, October, we're going to start running furnace tune-ups now because we don't want to run them in December, January, because now it's freaking cold, right? And that we want to run them before. So the key is to paint the picture for the customer that you're trying to prevent their breakdown when it is the worst.
Absolutely.
Time, right. Absolutely. So it's like changing oil in your car. I mean, you don't wait till your motor blows up before you change your oil.
Yeah.
Right. You change your oil to keep engine from blowing up, right? So I'm not a car guy, but I think that's what I heard. That's how it goes. But right, it's like you gotta plan ahead and you got to maintain these things. Otherwise, they will break down at the worst. They'll break down at the worst time. We know that for a fact.
Yeah, I think that's where so much opportunity lies within businesses today. Like just structurally, like we're talking about things that you can deploy with the assets that already exist that can make a huge difference to, you know, the way the business runs. That doesn't involve spending a huge ton of money. It's just like strategizing and, you know, budgeting for these things. So
yeah, I agree. I think that's a big miss is, again, and you've mentioned this a few times, but just it's not just spending more money. It's really just making sure you're really good at what you currently do and go deeper before you go wider, right? And really dive in and make sure you're really great before you start spreading out.
I mean, even the basic level, right? Last week we did a re-engagement campaign for a solar client of ours, and, you know, off the one email, which took, you know, literally 6 minutes to put together, you know, you generated something like 90 grand's worth of work out of it. Like one email. Like that wasn't a lot of work. That's a big return. You'll never get it. Never in a million years find any ad campaign that's going to deliver that kind of return.
That's a big return. But what that tells me is whoever were running that leads were good with their conversions.
Say again?
I said that tells me that the ad definitely worked, right? Or the email worked, but it also tells me that they were really good at converting those leads when they ran them. Well,
yeah, and they do have a good system for that, you know, like they've got the right team and they follow all of our training and stuff, you know, they're very good with that sort of thing. So, but I guess the point is, like some of these things which a lot of businesses kind of, I won't say disregard, but certainly sort of, or I won't say discredit, but, you know, they don't see it as like primary opportunity levers. You know, like we're saying again, last night I had this conversation with a client. I've been asking for months and months and months. Build a form in so we can build some completed project galleries on your website so we can use these in nurture sequences to improve your conversions. Months and months and months and months. A 15-minute job to fill one of these forms in. Can't get it done, you know? And it's like, and there's like, well, we'll up our ad budget. I'm like, we're not upping your ad budget. I'm not doing anything until you fill these forms in. Like, like a line in the sand, because they just don't, they don't really understand. I mean, the conversation around like conversion versus like, you know, just pumping money into the top of the thing is something that kind of gets lost, you know?
Yeah, no, you're spot on. I mean, we see that in the same scenario of, you know, I have a plumbing company and I'm not growing as fast as I want to, so I'm going to add HVAC. And it's like,
right.
How about we get really good at plumbing first, right? Build the structure of how really good we are at plumbing, and then we'll figure out if we want to branch out to another trade or not.
It's funny. I was talking to my mate Scott. You know, Scott from Network, who you guys dealt with a lot. So he was saying the same thing. You know, I was just saying, how'd you go with the adding the HVAC business into the eco mix? And he goes, "It's a fucking disaster."
Be honest about it.
Yeah, like super successful sort of, you know, business, but again, just different moving parts, right? I mean, they figured it out obviously eventually, but like it's not as easy as like, well, we want to grow the business, so let's just add electrical in. Like that's a whole different animal, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And it's not just the cost of it, but it's also the distraction, right? Because it really takes the owner's eyes off of what he should be focusing on, and now he's focusing on something else, and now what he was supposed to be doing before kind of goes into crapper. So like it's a huge distraction, and I mean it could cost a lot of money.
Awesome. Right, this has been great. Is there anywhere that we can send people to get more information about budgeting and stuff like that at your end?
So yes, anyone can look at our website at ceowarrior.com.
Yeah.
All of our training events are on there. I do want to kind of mention a couple of events we have coming up. So October 7th through the 9th, we have a 3-day Road Warrior, which is basically our service expert training. It's 7 steps to running a service call, and that's open to the public, which you should be able to look at on our website. Open to our members. It's included in our memberships, our membership fees, but public people from outside our membership can sign up and attend as well. October 21st through the 22nd is our war planning, which is what we spend a majority of our time talking about today. That is also open to any non-members to be able to join that as well. And then we have an event November 13th and 14th. All of these are in Eatontown, New Jersey, by the way, which is where our home office is. November 13th, 14th, we have a 2-day event. It's it's basically an event for people that are interested in CEO Warrior to come and spend 2 days with us and see what we do.
Sure.
So all 3 of those things are on there. Those are the next 3 we have coming up, and they're all on our website.
You run them regularly, right?
What's that?
You run those events pretty regularly, regardless.
We run them. We run them all throughout the year. So yeah, we really have. So we have 3 core. We have 3 core trainings: war planning, road warrior, and leadership. Yeah. And then we have all kinds of other trainings throughout the year for customer service, for CSRs, dispatch, outbounders. We have a marketing warrior. Yeah. We have a mindset training. We have tons and tons of trainings throughout the year. All of that is on our website. I'm
not 100% sure if this episode will be live by the time those events you mentioned are going to be out. But regardless, there'll be links to the website over in the show notes, guys. So head over to thesiteshed.com and just search Jason, and you'll get access to the website. But again, CEO Warrior is the website.com. Interesting story for you as well on how I met Mike Aguilera. So Mike, who was the founder of, I suppose, CEO Warrior, or one of the founders of CEO Warrior, and formerly gold medal. Was it HVAC? Was it?
Gold medal? They started out as electrical.
Electrical, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So Mike
and I were both electricians.
Yeah, right. He came out to Sydney for an event, and I did firewalking with him. How
did you like that?
It was a bit of fun, but it was a lot of hype. I mean, Mike, obviously, he's pretty hypey when he gets in the zone. Yeah. It was good fun. But
I don't want to scare people off, but we still do that sometimes.
Oh, you do?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we do a lot. We do a lot of things like that. We've done fire walks, glass walks, cold plunges. Break boards on fire, like all that fun, aero brakes, all that fun stuff. Nothing dangerous though, Matt.
No, nothing dangerous. Aero brakes, cool. No. All right, mate. Well, look, it's been a really good chat. Thank you so much for your time. For you guys out there, I guess, if I could just encourage you to do one thing, it's you work on these numbers to get the budget set, start with the P&L, get it tidied up, speak to your bookkeeper. Chances are, there's things there that could be cleaned up to make your reporting and things like that a lot more transparent.
Yeah, absolutely.
But otherwise, mate, thanks for your time. It's been great. And let's check in at a later date and cover off on some more things that you guys talk about.
Yeah, sounds good. I appreciate you having me.
Rock and roll. All right. Well, that is a wrap. Hey guys and girls, how would you like all of the value adds left behind from our podcast guest all put together in the one spot? We've pulled every tool together, every template, every resource shared on the show, and we've packed them all into the Tradie Academy. It's free to join and it's built by the team behind the Site Shed and Tradie Web guys. Inside, you'll get marketing tips, business tools, and first access to future resources, all in one simple dashboard. Just head across to tradie.wiki/pod. That's tradie.wiki/pod. The link's in the episode description. And once again, you just log in once and then you're all set. And if you want to get notified of upcoming episodes, hit subscribe or follow.